It's a sense of sitting down, eating food and sharing stories and celebrating for whatever reason. That's why I love cooking. That's what, when people come here and there's a table of 6 and they're celebrating for whatever reason, it's just a sense of, as long as they can eat the food as well. That's the joy I get from it.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. What's it like taking over a historic building for a new restaurant offering? How do you respect the past but evolve the offering to lure in customers? Jeff Schroeter is the chef and restaurateur of Darling Glebe in Glebe, Sydney. Jeff, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
It's good to get you back on the show. And you're in a very familiar space, which is kind of got an odd story behind it, but Darling Glebe is in a space that you previously had last time we caught up.
Exactly. About 5 years ago, I was first introduced to this room, and we opened and with a business partner, and fell in love with the building. And then ended up selling to my business partner a couple of years ago, and then it became available again. So I just jumped at it.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's an incredible space and a historic site in Sydney. Now, the new restaurant is Darling Glebe. Tell us a little bit about the history of the site and why you love it so much.
When I was first introduced over 5 years ago, it was empty. The real estate opened the front door, and I'd walked in, and it sounds a little crazy, but it gave me a warm hug. It's my second introduction to the room. I saw it about 30 years ago for the first time. And so, it was interesting. And when I looked at it from how it was built, the bones, I call it the bones, the hydraulics of how a restaurant works, from food in to garbage out. It was all there. It was all built beautifully. And so I thought, it has potential. The architecture is interesting stories. It goes on for 13 years to build this place. It was dug out. It was built by a crazy dentist that loved good food. And then he poached a couple very Roman stonemasons that were cleaning up an old church site, which is where all this stone came from, which was in the back alley. It was just the back alley. There's a daycare centre there now built on the same spot. And so they just walked it across he bought all the stone, walked it across the back laneway and started digging, and ended up 13 years later with this building, which was Darling Mills. At the same time he was building this, he sent all these kids overseas. One went to Chez Panay to learn how to cook. The other one went to some restaurant kitchen to learn how to grow herbs and lettuces. One was doing a business course, how to run the business. And so they were all doing different things until the restaurant was finished. Then he brought all these kids back home to run, to put them all in one spot. So that became the first paddock to, everyone says it now, but they had their own farm. They grew their own mesclun, grew their own herbs. They had a hydroponic setup still up there on the roof around the swimming pool, which wasn't a swimming pool back then. It was actually the water reservoir to do all the watering. And they used to use all their own farm produce in the restaurant. And this is going back in the early 80s, start of the 80s.
Yeah. Now, you've got a connection with the original owners in regards to produce and stuff. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I still use them now. So Darling Mills still has their own farm that supplies all the top restaurants. They grow their own mesclun, herbs and all that. So I still use their produce every week. I've been up to their farm, had a great chat to them. We actually, a couple of years ago, did their 30th anniversary for their cookbook. So they had a cookbook that they brought out, and so I cooked some dishes out of that, had a full restaurant. They brought in 30 of their relatives and their kids. Kids had never seen the restaurant before, and looked at what their grandfather built. So it was quite an exciting night, actually.
As you mentioned, sort of near the top of the show, you used to have Beckett's in that same site,
Yes.
but you walked away from that for a couple of years. Tell us about that period of time. Why did you leave the site, and what have you been doing for the last couple of years?
Um, it's about they wanted my business partners are in theatre. They wanted to do more with theatre, and so I said, "Well, that's good." It was named after them. Their last name is the same name, so I said, "Well, it's not much choice I can do." So I decided better off selling to them and let them, God bless, go. So in the meantime, I did some traveling, hopped on the motorbike, did some riding around the country, consulted for a few people, and just, but then kind of chilled out and relaxed a little, which was good. Did some fishing too. I love it.
Well, I was going to ask you on your adventures while traveling. Was there any food stories you can share with us over the last couple of years on your adventures around Australia?
Yeah, well, we go. I go with my brothers once a year up to the snowy mountains up, and just before the first snow falls, which is Lake Yukonbean. We get a log cabin there. We stay for a week, and we go trout fishing. Yeah, trout fishing is great. We're all different ways of catching trout. But then at night, we're also cooking. So there's a cabin. We've got 15 people in one cabin, a big kitchen, and I'm in there cooking, and it's just creating dishes that we have at the time. The trout we catch, we cook and cook at the time from the farm. My nephew shot rabbits, so we cook a rabbit one night. Everyone brings different things, lamb from the farm as well. So we do a lamb shoulder or a lamb leg roast. They bring smokers too, cold smokers, so we can smoke our own trout on site at the same time. So it's just playing with food. It's a nice, have a few wines, cooking food, telling yarns, and always talking about the biggest fish that got away.
I'm fascinated about stepping back into a site that you've had success in previously. You're stepping into a site that the clientele, what worked and what didn't work. Did you approach this restaurant differently to what you did in the first place in that site?
Not really. I picked up where I left it off because it was building momentum all the time, which is brilliant. So that's where I'm starting now, and just seeing the climate's changed a little, people's mindset has changed a little, but it's still got the same concept that we're still getting a lot of bookings of people spending anniversaries or birthdays, and the reason we named it Darling Glebe is to tie into its history. And a lot of people are coming to site. We've got some reservations coming up where it's the daughters of their parents that got married here and they want to get married here and things like that. And it's just, that's why we call it's a cultural significant for Sydney, I think, this restaurant. There's not many that are. And so that's... and I'm just tying into that more. It's for the old, the past older generation, but the younger generation too that want to get touch and feel. This is a restaurant where you got tablecloths, you got sandstone walls, you got beautiful lighting. It's the building's got a story itself, and people want the younger generation want to feel that as well.
You've cooked all over the world, which we've talked about previously, but how do you describe your food and what you're doing there? Is there some dishes that sort of exemplifies what you're doing?
Yeah, that's a good question. Everyone wants to put you in, your style of food. And they keep asking me, and I said, I'm not the one to be asking because I just cook what I like to eat and, what is good at the time. And it could come in different ways. And so I said, it's not French, it's not Italian, it's not Japanese, but I use all those techniques. I'm classically trained. I worked in the Escoffier kitchens of the Savoy in London, classically trained, but I'm utilising all different techniques to emphasise, the produce that's available. I love going back to the old classic dishes like a duck l'orange, but making it suitable for today's palate. Instead of using the heavy gastriques and the reductions of vinegar and all that, I'm just simply using a gin in the orange reduction that enhances. Now, when you think of gin, all the aromatics of gin to make gin is perfect with duck. And so you deglaze with gin instead of a vinegar, and with the sauce, and all of a sudden the whole thing, it lightens and makes a cleaner flavour. And so I love doing things like that. I've got a strawberry foie gras that by accident we came across it in New York. On a Sunday, we ran out of everything we used to do with the foie gras. And then we had some strawberries there, and we said, well, we worked different ways, poached the strawberries, came up with a dish, and we tried it. And we went, wow, that's really good. And it's just stuck with me ever since.
I'd love to dive into some of the amazing restaurants that you have worked in at the past. You mentioned the Savoy. Take us into that kitchen. What was it like, and what did you take as a person from that?
I was probably about the third Australian that ever worked in that kitchen. There's 60 to 80 chefs in one kitchen at a time. It's a big kitchen. You're cooking for royalty. You've got private rooms. It was tough. It was brutal. There was stabbings in the kitchens. There was fist fights of people fighting over produce. It was, I used to play Australian rules football. It learned that you had to be stronger than that to, stand your ground. And somehow I was mature enough to be able to do it, and then stood my ground, and then worked my way up through the kitchen. But it was tough. The average chef was about 3 days in that kitchen. But they constantly had a revolving door coming through. They had all the good ones, the Sues and all the chef de parties and all that. But then the helpers and all that, they were all trying it out and seeing if they could last. It was tough, but this is the old days. It's different now. You can't have a brigade that big enough in the kitchen anymore. It's not economically viable.
Yeah. You spent time in New York as well. Was that quite different to other kitchens that you've worked around the world in?
Well, so I was at Cable's with Serge Dansereau, worked there, and then went to Gold Coast International with Herbert Klinkenhammer, and then went overseas and went to the Savoy in London. Then from there, I went to New York, and New York was going through a real surge in the French chefs taking over restaurants and producing. They were all moving out of France, and they were going to New York. And working with chefs that are classically trained, but then changing it to a modern palate of America, of New York, was fascinating. It's the first time I tried salmon for the first time in a salmon tartare that tasted of salmon that I've never tried before. Now, I've eaten salmon everywhere, but that was the first time I went, wow, I can really taste the produce. Or the protein. And I just went, wow, there's something more in this. That's why I stayed for 4 years there. It's just learning all the techniques of classic brought forward.
You also worked at the Sydney Institution Bayswater Brasserie, which created so many chefs that have gone on to do amazing things. Tell us about that period of time and how important that restaurant was, and what it was like being part of it.
Yeah, so I was there after GST. When GST came in, it did change the whole concept of dining, especially the long lunches. But I was brought in more as to re-ground it. It was lost in its ways. This is where we had Charlie Ainsbury was in the bar at the time as a young kid. That's where I first met him. They had a great barman, as well as I revamped the food, not simplified it, but just brought back the classically what it was known for. It's a beautiful building again, but again, when the property changed hands and then the rent changed because it was per square meter, and there's a lot of dead space in that room. And that's where it became uneconomical near the end. But it was an institution, loved the stories, got the cookbooks at home, knew the previous 4 owners that had it, and so again, that was an iconic room. So I kind of gravitate to iconic rooms. Moncoeur's another. It was just in its days, every room, there's certain rooms that really sing.
You've worked at so many amazing institutions in Sydney. What have been the real key ones for you that kind of helped shape you?
I think when I got my own first one, which was Each City, it was above the City Hotel. Lee Moulds owned it back then, which he loves his restaurants. But I just leased the top floor. It used to be Bouillons before I got hold of it, and it's just putting all the concepts that I've learned from all the other restaurants and putting it into actually my first restaurant. Just as that was such a eye opener for me. It's just to see how I can transform my thoughts into actually making a viable business.
Hmm. When you got the call about the site that you're in right at the moment, what were your initial thoughts straight away? Were you ready to step back into a restaurant? Was it an easy decision for you? Or?
Yeah, I said yes in 10 seconds. Without even knowing the details. I said, we'll work that out later. But yes, I am interested. And it's basically what I said. Yes, I was. That's where I was looking around for another venue, but nothing gravitated like this one did. This one kind of won't let me go now, I don't think.
Well, what's life like for you in the kitchen? You mentioned sort of the toughness of the Savoy, and now teams are a lot smaller. What's the average day for you like in the kitchen now compared to when you were young?
Oh, not a lot. The Savoy was, 16-hour days in banquet season. It was at least 12. And then when banquet season hit, it was 16 hours and you did that 5 days. It was tough. Here now, I started at 11, finished at 11. So it's 12-hour day. And then on the days off, I'm doing the bookwork and the accounts and so forth. So it's a full-time job. There's lots of phone inquiries. There's a lot sort of function inquiries. So there's a lot of admin, which is hard to outsource because we do a lot of bespoke stuff. So it has to be, and it can come from a certain amount of people. And then hopping into the kitchen is getting the young kids to the speed and level where you want them, and the consistency. Consistency is a lot in a restaurant, and it's hard. It's the hardest one to get because you're only as good as your worst dish. Yeah, it's working with the young kids now to bring them up to speed. But it's a small team, so I can work shoulder to shoulder with them. I'm there with them, and so it's not like I'm writing out something and then leave them to it. I'm there with them in the kitchen. I'm the first one in and the last one out. So it kind of wants to rub off on them that, this is what it takes if you're serious about what you want to do.
It was only like 5 or 6 years ago that sort of COVID sort of shook everyone in the industry. Where do you see things at the moment? Do you see a real opportunity and positivity, or what does it feel like as a restaurateur?
I think it's on the J curve of coming back up. I think the bounce is coming again. I think people are excited about quality and about and things that are unique for them. They still love the experience. They love food. And this building kind of ties in with that, with the experience as well. People are after experience. They travel overseas for the experience. But yeah, I think it's picking up. I believe it is.
Well, it's amazing to see you back in that site. What have you got planned for the next couple of years?
Just building momentum. My wife has lots of plans for me that I try not to listen to about how to do more, do a cookbook, do video show. And so I'm just let me build momentum and get the cooking done first, and then how we do the rest, we'll go from there. Still excited about going fishing once a year, trout fishing. Still excited to hop on the motorbike to get some bugs in my teeth, just to get some fresh air. Yeah, and it's great again working with suppliers that they ring me each day and say, look, I've just got this today, or I've got this just came in. I work with Colucci across the road, which is the best fruit and veg shop in the city. And when they say it's from paddock to plate, well, he deals with about 15 farmers over there. So I can just walk in there and I'm dealing with 15 farm produce direct. And so it's like, I don't need to have the farm because he's got them all there. I just walk in and smell the fruit. And it's just a great godsend, send the barman over to get inspiration. Just walk through and see what you smell. See what's available right now.
For young people in the industry out there looking to sort of one day have their own venue and express themselves, what sort of advice would you have for them to build the foundations for that?
Take your time. Don't rush it, because you change when you get older. You do lots of different things to learn which way you're going to gravitate to. Sometimes it comes earlier, but I'm a late bloomer. I took my time. I wasn't in a rush to prove anything. I just wanted to make sure that I knew what I wanted to do. Because once you're in it, if you didn't want to be there, you're in deep. It's troubling. So you need to be confident enough in your ability and your strengths and your weaknesses, and recognize your weaknesses to get them covered by someone else. So you take your time, I think.
Well, it's great to see you back in that site and firing. What are you loving about what you're doing at the moment?
The enjoyment on the people's faces when they come. I did a Valentine's, and then some people miss Valentine's on the Saturday, and so I kept the menu for the Sunday, and people booked in for it. And then just a young couple, their first anniversary, she ordered the Valentine's set menu. Came in. I was doing the dishes that night. It was a Sunday night. I was at the dishwasher. She came into the kitchen, and she said, "Thank you." And I said, "Oh, it's my pleasure." So I just said, "No, phenomenally, that was the best meal I've ever had, and thank you." And it's just like, and that just lifts you for a whole week. And that's why I cook. I grew up as a kid with, I've got 52 first cousins on my father's side. And, when the families got together to celebrate, all the mums were in the kitchen cooking in these big farm homesteads, and all the dads were out there on spits cooking the lamb or cooking the pig. And then they put all the food together on the table, and everyone sits down. There's 60 people, and you got the food set in one lounge room. You're sitting on the veranda. You're sitting in other rooms. But as a kid, I used to run around in the kitchens tasting all the food from all the grandmothers, licking the spoons and all that. I didn't know at the time I wanted to be a chef. But when we all sat down, it's a sense of sitting down, eating food and sharing stories and celebrating for whatever reason. That's why I love cooking. That's what, when people come here and there's a table of 6 and they're celebrating for whatever reason, it's just a sense of, as long as they can eat the food as well. That's the joy I get from it.
That's really beautiful, Jeff, and it's an absolute pleasure to catch up with you again on the show. I look forward to seeing where you take Darling Glebe from here, so please keep in touch and we'll catch up again soon.
Great talking to you.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Stay safe and be well.